Joining us now, Joe Hines. Joe Hines is running as an independent in the special election for the state Senate race, District 22. That's Lynchburg, Goochland, Buckingham, areas like that. This is the Senate seat of Tom Garrett, who left the state Senate because he got elected to Congress. So now there's a special election on January 10th. These January specials, you never know who's going to turn out. Could be 5%, 8%, 12%, 20%. No one ever knows. And there's three candidates. But here's the thing. The Republicans only hold the state Senate in Virginia by one vote. They're up 21-19, one flip. That makes it 2020. Ralph Northam, Lieutenant Governor, he hits the button. Bang. Saslaw's back in control of the state Senate, and it's in Democratic hands. Now, let me lay the picture out for you. This district is R plus 12, which means Republicans should win. They've got a 12-point percentage advantage on paper. Tom Garrett won in this district in 2000, let's say, 11. I think he got like 57%, crushed his opponent, had no opposition in 2015. The Democrats didn't even bother to put somebody up. So that gives you a sense of what this district is. Now, there's three candidates in the race. Democrat Ryan Washington, former Sheriff Fluvanna. Always got to look out for the sheriffs because they always have a political base there. The Republican, who was nominated at a Senate district convention a couple weeks ago, is Mark Peake. He defeated Ken Peterson, former supervisor of Goochland, handily. So he's a Republican. He was on our show yesterday. And now, independent candidate Joe Hines running as an independent conservative. So what the Democrats are telling me is party time. Hines is going to split the Republican vote with Peake, and then Washington wins, and Dick Saslaw becomes the godfather once again. So that's how the Democrats think it's going to play out. Now, we have Joe Hines with us to sort all this out, get his perspective on this campaign. Joe Hines, good to have you with us.
Thank you, John. Thank you for your time this morning, and appreciate you allowing us the opportunity to come on the radio show and talk about our campaign.
Yesterday, Mark Peake was on. We brought your name up. Peake said, hey, newsflash, an independent has never won a state Senate race in the history of Virginia, and he's going to get about 3% like Gary Johnson did. How do you respond to that?
Based upon our research, we wouldn't have entered into this race if we didn't think it was a winnable race. I am a professional engineer by training. I also have an MBA from the Duke Fuqua School of Business, and we did a significant amount of research before we put our name into the ring. Something I thought was interesting was the weekend that both the Republicans and the Democrats were having the party conventions in Farmville, Virginia, which is where I was born and raised, Prince Edward County, Farmville, Virginia. I believe there were we gathered signatures that weekend. We only needed to get 250 signatures in 5 business days from the writ of the election, which Governor McAuliffe issued, I believe, that Tuesday prior to the convention weekend. And we ended up gathering over 700 signatures in 3 days. And just it was an overwhelming majority of people who were just really not happy with the two-party system. You know, the Republicans, I think, had somewhere around 463 delegates show up, and the Democrats had 100, give or take. And I think a lot of people were just frustrated because that's setting the tone for 195,000 people. You know, this past election with Donald Trump, I think it indicated that there's really a anti-establishment feeling or trend out there in vote. And I think they're looking for a true conservative to be serving the district. You know, being a local boy, born and raised on a farm just outside of Farmville. I grew up in a Christian home on a tobacco and cattle farm in Southside Virginia. My father owned his own surveying and engineering business, a small business. He had anywhere from 8 to 16 employees, for his 50-plus years in business. And I had a mother who was a teacher and director of community chorus and played the organ for a church. And that's where I developed my core conservative values. I feel like, based upon feedback we were getting and the research we did in the district, it is a special election. You brought up the fact that it is a balance of power seat, but if I go into that seat, what we do is we raise the independent voice, the independent conservative voice for the district tremendously. The district appears to have been lost. A lot of rural Virginia, and in particular District 22, appears to get lost at state legislature when you look at the influence that Northern Virginia and Hampton Roads has. And we view this as an opportunity to really come out and be a strong independent voice for the district, a very independent district. When you look at probably the breakdown of the district and you remove the big institutional employers like hospitals or the colleges and the schools, your average business size is somewhere between 6 to 10 people, and people were just overwhelmingly saying, Joe, we just aren't getting a lot of attention in Richmond for the district. We need you to go up there, get their attention, and serve the district the way we need to be served. We're just tired of the party politics that are going on between the two parties and people playing into or representatives who really don't care about the district. They care more about party politics than they do the constituency of the district.
So, Joe Hines, if I can understand where you're coming from here, it sounds like you're telling me you're in it to win it, right? This isn't the spoiler role, because all the spoiler role would do is flip the balance of power, as you mentioned, from Republican hand Tommy Norment back to Dick Saslaw, due to the fact that it would be a 2020 tie and Lieutenant Governor Ralph Northam would be able to set all the committee chairs, and that would be that. So it's also, I think what you're saying is you would be likely, if you win, to go over with the Republicans or to caucus with them, right, in order to give them the majority. Is that my understanding?
Well, I mean, my objective is to work with the conservative Republicans to implement good common sense legislation. I think at times we lose sight of trying to introduce good common sense legislation. I've heard a lot of delegates and senators say, hey, I need to get a bill passed so I can get reelected, no matter what the bill is. Now, at times I think that's just a little bit. I don't want to say it's ludicrous, but I just think that's a wrong metric. And again, being a business person, and being a professional engineer, with my background, I know how to fix things. I'm not that establishment guy, and I'm not that typical politician. And we measure things metrically in business that achieve the desirable outcome. And for a politician to basically say, hey, I need to get bills passed no matter what the bills say, just to get reelected, that's not a good measure of the outcome of what I think the effectiveness should be for the state legislature. We need to put good common sense laws in the books. We need to be pro-business, pro-economic development, and pro-growth. And if we aren't accomplishing those objectives in the state legislature, then we need to relook at how we're going about doing business up there. This is not the first time that I've heard this spoiler role thing. And the first time I heard it, I thought that's absolutely ludicrous, and we couldn't disagree more with that position. However, when you get right down to it, that's what we expect our competition to say. Like Democrats trying to say that the presidential race was over before Trump won. These are clearly scare tactics and a strategy to try to get people to not vote for me. And it's the only thing we think that Pete can stand on to try to win this race. The reality is, if I can spend 5 or 10 minutes with somebody, a voter in the district or a group of voters in the district, they're convinced that I am the best candidate for this position. I will represent the district very well. I have very strong conservative values. Having grown up on a farm, when you grow up on a tobacco and cattle farm, you have no choice but to work. I think we could cure a lot of ills of society if we could allow every kid out there to grow up on a farm and spend a summer on a farm working and seeing, how things actually happen and whatnot. So, you're right. We're in this to win it, and I don't think there's any doubt that we'll do that. But again, I will be glad to work with conservative Republicans to implement good common sense legislation that really is in the best interest of the Commonwealth, the best interest of the district, and is, again, pro-economic development, pro-growth, and pro-business.
Joe Hines, couple questions. If you wanted to run for state senate, why didn't you just run in the convention a few weeks ago and try to get the nomination and beat Mark Peake and Ken Peterson?
Well, We took a look at that, to be quite frank, and, Ken Peterson was good, strong conservative, and, I think if Ken had won, we might not have thrown into this race. And again, I went into that weekend collecting signatures, kind of under the impression that, we'll see how this weekend goes. We'll go ahead and take the steps to collect signatures, and we'll see what happens with these party conventions. So based on feedback, like I said, when Ken didn't win, Mark Peake got in, and I think it's safe to say that Mark is he's a well-established party guy. He's an old guard guy. I think he ran in 2011. I believe he came in third to Tom Garrett, Brian Bates, who's a good friend of mine from over in Buckingham, and then Mark Peake came in that race. So he's obviously been working with the party for a while, and again, I think people were just tired of the partisan politics and everybody being so polarized on both sides of the aisle, and we just need to get some things done up there. Again, I'm kind of like Donald Trump. I just want to get things done is really what it boils down to. I want to fix things. I want to make things better. And, people were really tired of the partisan politics, and that was the feedback that I kept getting. What was ironic about us collecting signatures that weekend was actually I had people from both Republican and Democratic sides sign the petition, and even some people who attended the conventions ended up signing my petition that evening. I had 9 different events to go to that weekend. I went to 7 of them, and I personally collected over 300 signatures, and then the rest of my team collected the remainder of them. We turned in 73 petitions with 606 signatures, even though we collected a lot more, but we knew that was enough to get the nomination. And so I just feel like that there's just that groundswell of support for conservative values, for wanting somebody who can really be a voice for the district and represent the district, who is from the district, born and raised in the district, who understands the district needs. My dad has a small engineering and surveying firm. I think by the time I graduated from high school, and he served the entire district in a small engineering surveying firm, I'd surveyed a piece of property in all but one locality by the time I graduated high school. Then with my current role as Director of Economic Development at Timmons Group, we work with all these different localities within the district for economic development. Now, you were talking about Glenn Davis, I believe, traveling overseas and trying to figure out what's going on there. Part of being as participatory in this Fuqua School of Business, I'm currently the vice chair of the Alumni Council, getting ready to rotate on their board of visitors. J.B. Fuqua is a Prospect, Virginia, Prince Edward County native. He grew up in the district, okay? He had to go to Atlanta to make his fortune, okay? As my role as vice chair of the Alumni Council of the Business School, I have exposure to alumni that are in 56 different countries. With my role in Timmons Group, we help our clients. We work with them to develop sites and develop infrastructure such that they can recruit international businesses. And so I've been on international trips before. My partners have been on international trips before to recruit those businesses. So we understand the dynamics of what are going on in the global marketplace. And so I think there's an opportunity to elevate the district. When I look at some of the base infrastructure,
Joe, we're running out of time. I got to get to a couple other issues, Joe.
For the district, I think is very helpful.
Joe, we're running out of time. I only got 2 minutes. I got to get to a couple other things. So were you at the state Senate nominating convention?
No, we were not. I was not physically at.
So you were not.
I was not.
You were not signed up.
Either one of those.
So you were not signed up.
And one was at Hampton-Sydney.
Right. So you were
College.
not. I'm just trying to get the facts out. So you were not there.
Sure.
You were not one of the delegates signed up. You didn't vote at the convention for Peterson or for Mark. Right? You were not there.
No, we did not.
Okay. Give our audience, give our listeners one fundamental policy difference of significance between Joe Hines and Mark Peake.
I had a professor that said a good question is one I have to think about. A great question is one I know the immediate answer to. I haven't done that much research on Mr. Peake's policy issues, okay? Because basically I'm running on the platform that people want me to serve the district, and they know that I'm a good conservative, okay? I will not put party politics over the people of the district. I've made that very clear to the constituency, and we have gotten overwhelming response. Again, we've gotten overwhelming response across the district for people wanting somebody who is from there to represent them and to be a strong conservative voice into the district.
Right, but you're not giving me one policy difference between yourself and the Republican nominee. So it's sounding like a personality thing where you think you'll get along with people better and he's an establishment candidate, but I'm looking for some meat here on the bone. I mean, to motivate you to run as an independent, as a Republican independent conservative, I respect that, respect your signatures, respect what you're trying to do, but I'm trying to figure out, other than maybe you just don't like Mark Peake for some reason, what's the policy difference? You're going to caucus with the Republicans. You said that. He will also. So they'll stay in the majority if you win. So other than style, is there one issue that you're like, you know what, Peake is too moderate. He'll do this. I'll do B. Peake will do A. You haven't really provided us with that. So I'm trying to understand the rationale for your candidacy beyond personality. Does that make sense?
It does, yes. So, when we get to our policies, if you go to our website and look at our policies, our policy, one is to limit government. We want to grow our economic development in our base, and we want to protect our veterans and citizen warriors, protect our citizens, and we want to fight for a district. And again, we're there to find out what's in the best interest. Now, when it comes to setting policy, as a trained engineer, I have to take the equivalent of a Hippocratic oath, which is look out for the best interest of the public health, safety, and welfare first and foremost. All right, so when you get into looking at the policies, I realize that sometimes you only have about 10 or 15% of the information from the outside looking into those policies, but I also have the toolbox to fix those and to make the desirable outcome for what we want, which is, again, being pro-economic development, pro-business, and pro-growth. Okay? So from that aspect, we feel very strong that we are the candidate. It's not a personality district. We know that we are not the party voice. I did not specifically say I would caucus for Republicans. I said I would work with the Republican conservatives to implement good common sense legislation. But there were over 3,000 pieces of legislation that were introduced last year, and that's a tremendous volume of legislation that needs to go through the system. So it is a core principle conservative value difference that I see with Mr. Peake, and I'm not going to play party politics. I'm going to stand up for what is good common sense legislation for the district in the 22nd district.
So, Joe, if you won, because you just said you're not going to commit to caucusing with the Republicans, so if you were to win, would you entertain a phone call from right now Senate Minority Leader Dick Saslaw to come over to them?
No, would not.
All right. So if you're not going to entertain his phone call, you got to caucus with somebody, or I guess you could just be an independent, which would make it, let's see, it's 2119, so they would get 20. I guess if you didn't caucus with anybody, then the Republicans, I think, would still have control. I'll have to figure that out. But look, Joe, I appreciate the time. I'm really trying to figure out what the policy differences are. If you could get back to us on that. Because you're asking,
we'll get back to you.
You're asking people in the district. You didn't go to the convention, all right? So that's fine. That's your choice. And you're saying if Peterson won, it sounds like I heard you say you wouldn't have run as an independent because he had a set of conservative values that you were more comfortable with than the eventual Republican nominee Mark Peake. But you're not giving me any specifics. So if I'm a voter in the 22nd district, other than you're a nice guy and you've done all this stuff, I'm trying to figure out what policies are going to separate Joe Hines and Mark Peake, and I think that's legitimate. Anyway, I'm out of time. What's your website?
Sure. www.Hines, Hines, forva.com.
All right. Joe Hines running as an independent Republican conservative in the 22nd district. That race, it'll just be an open ballot. Any registered voter can participate. It'll be January 10th. 3 candidates: Joe Hines, independent Republican nominee Mark Peake, and Democratic nominee, former sheriff of Fluvanna, Ryan Washington. Thanks, man. Thanks for being with us, Joe. You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network. I'll be right back.